load shedding. Didn't think I'd say that anytime soon. The last time this happened, we're told, was about 4 years ago. But let's make sense of this moment. Bring in energy analyst Yelland, who joins us now via our video link for his thoughts and whether or not we're out the woods just yet. Chris, lovely to have you on the SABC. Thanks for speaking to us on this chilly Friday morning. So, of course, Eskom has released a statement describing this as a milestone. And I wonder if you're joining in on those celebrations or are a bit more cautiously optimistic.
Well, I'm certainly celebrating. It's great news, and I think I welcome it, and I'm sure everybody else who's been experiencing load shedding for the last few years has welcomed it and is welcoming it as well. Of course, one has to be conscious of the fact that we could have, load shedding again. Intermittent bouts of load shedding are possible. We did have 3 units at Kusile which broke down suddenly and were out for a year. We did have an explosion at Medupi that took out a generation unit, for more than 2 years, still out. These things happen, and I'm not saying they could never happen again, but I certainly hope not, and I don't expect them to happen again. But I think we just got to be a little bit realistic. That it's going to take further effort to be really sure. But one thing I can say is that we should not think that no load shedding is unusual. In fact, there's only a very small handful of countries around the world that have experienced load shedding of the kinds that we have. And it's completely abnormal. It's abnormal to have any load shedding whatsoever. It is normal to have no load shedding, and that's what we need to aspire for.
Absolutely, yeah, right. In the future, hopefully we don't have to keep marking these milestones of having power because, quite frankly, as you put it, that ought to be the expectation about how life, needs to unfold. But Eskom is putting this down to a number of things, and I just wanted to get your thoughts about whether or not you reckon that's what's made the difference. So apparently our fleet is performing much better than it used to, and that's the sense I'm getting from you as well. And I also find it interesting that they say they're using a whole lot less of the open cycle gas turbines to keep the lights on, which is also very significant.
Well, that's right. If you look at the data, it is clear that the level of unplanned breakdowns is consistently lower than it was last year. And that's a sign of better performance of the Eskom fleet. And of course, it results, the net result of this is less load shedding and, of course, less reliance on open cycle gas turbines. But for Eskom or anybody to suggest that only Eskom, the good work by Eskom is resulting in this load shedding, I think is missing the point. There's a whole range of reasons, many of them nothing to do with Eskom, that are causing this reduction in the intensity and frequency of load shedding. I mean, the good work by the president himself in identifying the problem, in putting together a plan, in appointing a Minister of Electricity, in setting up the National Electricity Crisis Committee, and the good work that these people are doing is also playing an important role. And the Minister of Electricity has played an important role. The reduction in demand due to the weak economy has played a role. The reduction in the intensity, the energy intensity of the economy of South Africa is playing a role. The very high price increases of Eskom are playing a role. All of these factors are coming together. Some of them, within Eskom's control, some of them completely outside of Eskom's efforts. But it's a team effort. It's all coming together. It's working. And I think the Minister of Electricity, who is in fact the face of this reduction in load shedding as a team effort, is being rewarded politically, very handsomely politically, for his remarkable turnaround achievement.
Yeah. In fact, it was in February last year during President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address when he made the announcement around appointing the electricity minister in the presidency. And you're right, it's quite phenomenal how much has been achieved in just over, a year or 6 months, so to speak. But again, the skeptics among us will be raising questions around why it's taken just over a year and 6 months to fix a decades-old problem. I mean, Did we have to go through all of that now that we've been able to fix it, or at least optimistically have been able to get to this point as quickly as we have?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It should not. There's no reason why it should have been taken so long to get to the grips with this problem. And I do think that the election played a very positive role. It kind of focused the minds of politicians and others to do what we should have always been doing all along. It became a top political issue. It has no doubt already impacted politically, the outcome of the election. But in the lead up to the election, in the 6 months or even longer lead up to the election, I think that this looming election played a very important role in focusing the president's mind, the Minister of Electricity's mind, and a lot of people in government to really attend to a problem that they had neglected for many years.
Eskom's Group Executive for Generation is being quoted as saying that our energy availability factor is hovering around 70%. If my memory serves me well...
No, not true.
Okay.
Not true.
Well,
you have to look... Yeah, you have to look at the data. The data is very clear. I publish it on Twitter X every single week. It shows the trend of the energy availability factor. No, it's not near 70%.
All right. Okay, so the question I was going to ask is whether or not that's true. You've answered that. But I wonder if we do get to 70%, whether that's enough, you reckon, to keep load shedding at bay?
Look, it's really critical, not just to have a 70% energy availability factor, but we need a surplus new generation capacity coming on stream to cater for potential growth in the economy. Right now, the economy is flat. The energy intensity of the economy is declining, and the demand for Eskom electricity is declining quite rapidly. And that is very helpful in reducing load shedding. But if we want our economy to grow, we have to bring in new generation capacity, not just improve the performance of the existing capacity, because this generation capacity of Eskom is going to have to be wound down, the coal-fired power stations, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We need new generation capacity to replace that. We need new generation capacity to give us a healthy generation margin, at least 15% more than what we're using, so that we've got spare capacity in order to do the right levels of maintenance. We've got to replace the old plant. We've got to build in more for the growth in the economy, and we've got to build in a healthy reserve margin. So the job is not over. We've got to build massive quantities of wind, solar PV, battery energy storage, gas to power, pumped water storage. We do not need more coal-fired power in South Africa. We've got more than enough. In fact, 80% of our electricity comes from coal. We need to diversify that in order to manage risk.
Yeah, we're told that the coal-powered fire stations are baseload, and I suppose that's still the case. The sense I'm getting from you, of course, is that we're not out the woods just yet. But I mean, would you be surprised if, we find ourselves this winter having to implement, I don't know, a stage 3, 4, 5 load shedding, for example?
The point is that I'm not a fortune teller, nor is Eskom, nor is anybody else. We don't know when the next crisis is going to hit, or even if it's going to hit. It is possible that there can be a major breakdown of plants simultaneously, but I certainly am not expecting it. I'm not trying to be a doomsayer or anything like that. But we just got to keep our head on the ground that these things can happen. They've happened in the past, and maybe they can happen again. But let's hope not. Let's hope that people are focused on the job at hand. The point is, if you want your power system to be resilient to the kind of things that can and do happen, you need surplus generation capacity. And we got to get to the stage where we have generation capacity in reserve to account for these possible disasters, and so that our power system becomes truly resilient. Yeah. That's where we should be.
Fair enough. Before I let you go, Chris, I have to ask this question around what's taking place in the city of Johannesburg. This 200 Rand surcharge being implemented. There's been an uproar. The city of Joburg says it's followed all the steps required, including a public participation process where people could have raised their objections. But of course, there are people, including civil society, questioning whether or not this is fair and if it's not really down to the city failing to maintain its own infrastructure and now passing the cost on to consumers. What's your reading of what's taking place? I mean, are Joburg residents being hard done by here?
Yes, they are. I'm talking about the poor and the marginalized and the indigent. It is outrageous what is happening to them. When you put up the price of electricity to the poor 6 to 10 times the inflation rate, you can expect trouble. And the suggestion that they followed a public process is just totally inadequate. The reality is that this 230 Rand per month fixed charge has never been subject to a public process by the city of Johannesburg, nor was it subject to any meaningful public process by NERSA. NERSA's role in this whole thing is disgraceful. So is City Powers.
All right, not mincing your words, Chris Yelland. We appreciate your time on the SABC. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Chris Yelland, of course, an energy analyst, as we make sense of the 100 days that we're experiencing without load shedding and the many other energy-related issues. Of course, as the city of Joburg wants to have a right of reply to that, we're very open to that here on the agenda.